to try to give you like a, or just generally like a practical view on how I would start that conversation, goes back to the sort of network structured versus structured stuff, right? I think every organization is, and again, I'll just oversimplify this in consultant speak, but every organization or every big system is a combination of structured sort of problems. And as we've proven over hundreds of years, like big bureaucracy and hierarchies tend to handle those effectively, whether we like them or not is a different question. And then these unstructured sort of network problems, right? Both these systems have always existed. This one has become far more prevalent in the last 30 years as we've gone into the technology age. It's able to scale and get a global sort of position in a way that it couldn't before we were all connected at light speed around the world. And so every organization has to be able to play both these games at the same time. The core idea of our methodology is a combination of these two. How do you become both a structured system and overlay effective networks on top of it, sort of hybrid model that we believe in. But I think to start a conversation around operating cadence, you have to sit, and you can do this yourself on a napkin, right? Just think through what are the things we do in a structured way that's very effective and it's worth taking the extra time and effort, right? These things move slower, but they're more predictable in their output, and you can manage and lead them more effectively. That's why we built them in the first place as humans. But it comes at a cost, right? They're not super agile. They're not designed to be. These are super agile, but they can also be a pain in the neck because now you just got sort of unruly humans deciding in the moment what to do, right? So you don't want to run your organization in today's world through either of these systems alone, we would argue, but build a structure that combines both of them, which is somewhat of a separate discussion. But I think sitting down with the leadership team and saying, what are these things that we have to do right every single time? And these it's not a long list. This is like regulatory issue or, in pharma, like, is the product safe to put in the market? All those things. And a rule of thumb, like if you look at it at a scale of 1 to 10, how big of a risk it is if it goes wrong, these should be like your 9s and 10s, which means like the board's coming in on a Sunday and somebody's getting fired or regulators are going to show up and dig into it. And so it shouldn't be a 50-page list, right? And then over here, what are those little ankle biters that are always getting in the way and preventing me from getting to the strategic stuff? Because my inbox is always filling with noise. That's always been there. But as you can all surely attest, especially the last 2 years, you've got dozens of these in your inbox before you're done with your coffee on Monday morning. And on this scale up here, I would argue they tend to be, these are kind of your 3s and 4s, right? But when you get a dozen 3 or 4s all at once, it seems like, oh my God, the sky's falling, right? And you'll start to pattern recognize this stuff. You're all with successful organizations. You're probably already doing a lot of it right anyway. You might understand, like, we're not giving this one enough attention because we're getting bitten in the ankle by these things all the time. It's over here. So you have an existing operating rhythm that kind of does this. It's over here where you can start to recognize, okay, these are kind of like personnel issues. These are competitive market landscape issues. These are whatever, right? There, you can then say, okay, how often should we be synchronizing as a team to get ahead of these types of personnel issues? It's not our like recruiting off college campuses or something. That's a big HR issue that we're doing decently well. But it's this other sort of quick rising stuff inside of our organization. And suddenly we have a problem that we've got to reverse engineer and go back and deal with. How do we stay ahead of those? How do we stay ahead of the fast growing competitors in this part of the market? Whatever it is, then you can start to put an operating rhythm on top of it and saying, look, we have to talk about these things at least once a week, or we're always going to be playing catch up. This is probably like 3 times a week during peak season from our frontline managers to understand what's happening in their corner of the market, et cetera, et cetera. So you can start to build out some sort of operating rhythm that applies to this part, and then you figure out how to weave it into the existing operating rhythm that you already have in place.